In 2003, we saw the first start at Roblox. In December, they registered the name GoBlox, and then 10 days later they changed it and registered the domain name Dynablox. This one will stick for a bit and it holds Roblox's first memories. This is when we would see the first glance of what it was. Eventually though, before a full release, they settled on the name Roblox, which would become a household name and one of the biggest games ever made. But this didn't come without hiccups, and as the company got bigger, it only fueled their greed. At the start of the game, it was a small project and a small team. David Baszucki, the founder, and his co-founder Eric Cassell did the real heavy lifting, changing stuff to the website, making games, they basically did everything. And finally on September 1st, 2006, it was officially released to the public. The first year Roblox showed its humble beginnings. It was a small game with only a few thousand players on the entire website. In the middle of December, they hit 10,000 accounts, so it wasn't a massive site, but this showed it had a lot of potential. And at this point, Roblox was fully focused and in touch with its players. And they had a currency called points, and it was completely free. You got points by just logging in every day and playing some mini games. This showed that early on, Roblox wasn't focused on just money. There was nothing to buy. They did remove points just after 1 month though, so there was no currency. But in 2007, that would all change. Roblox was introduced first in May, a currency they didn't have to pay for yet. They made it so you can buy a year later, which isn't bad. Obviously they need to make money. Then Tix was introduced in August, and it was once again a free currency. You didn't have to spend any money. You would earn them through logging in and other methods. Players loved this, and it showed that once again, Roblox wasn't that money hungry, and you could also trade in Tix for Robux. So not everything was behind a paywall. You can just pay if you wanted to. It wasn't required, so people didn't really care. In 2007, Roblox also trolled everyone by saying that Google bought them, which once again shows their involvement with the community and players. And from this point on, the next few years that would follow would be amazing for the company. Roblox was quite involved with its player base and always was tough to please them. In 2009, they even did a survey just to get to know the community better. This showed that they really cared for the players and cared about making Roblox the most fun for them. We also got super iconic events and contests like the egg hunts, Halloween events, and random contests like the school project contest. There were a few minor hiccups, like Builders Club was fully released with all tiers in 2009, which wasn't anything bad, but they started making some games Builders Club only, which caused some outrage. This was the first time we saw Roblox put a game behind a paywall, and would be our first glance on with their greed. In 2010, we also started to see sponsor events pop up, like the Zeke and Luther event for example, but players didn't mind since they weren't done that often, and there were still content classic events like egg hunts. Roblox is a company, they obviously have to make money, but at this point, they had a good balance of interacting with the community and making them happy, and also making money through currency purchases and events. In 2013, Roblox started to do live events and streams on their YouTube channel, another incredible way to keep in touch and interact with the community. They gave a chance for Roblox to hear what the community thought about the platform and what they wanted for the future, and as the community kept begging for something to be added, they would take it into consideration, and eventually it might be added. Having this level of interaction with the community was fantastic. At this time, they would also still do surveys with devs to get their input and ideas. In 2015, we started to see a lot more sponsored events, but yet again, classic events were still in place, so people didn't mind. Also, sponsored events were pretty different back then. A lot of them were actually proper games and hunts, making them fun to play. So just because an event was sponsored didn't mean it was bad. A lot of them were pretty loved in the community. So from the start of Roblox in 2016, everything was going great. Roblox was fully interacting with the community, players were happy, and there was stuff you could purchase, but it wasn't required to do a lot of stuff. Then in 2016, we saw a big turning point. The free currency Tix was removed from the game in April, removing the only free currency, meaning if you now want to buy clothing or other items, you're not forced to pay. To be fair to Roblox, this wasn't fully done out of greed and money. Players found ways to exploit Tix by getting bots to join your game. They could have changed how you earned them, but they completely removed it to prevent anyone from exploiting them in. And besides this, from this point on, Roblox would just become more and more distant from the community. They started to do less community involved stuff and even more sponsored events. But luckily, they still did have some community oriented stuff, like proper events and some contests. 2021 I feel like was the beginning of the end. This is when Roblox started to completely distance itself from the community, and they did one thing that would ultimately be a massive turning point for the company. The moment the Roblox stock launched, she completely tarnished its relationship with the community. This is the point where all Roblox cared about was money, and they would prioritize money over anything. Any company that wanted to join Roblox was allowed and got way more attention and respect from Roblox than any creator on the platform. Roblox completely faded out of traditional fun events and will only make boring sponsor events that no one likes. In 2021, we had 33 events, and only about 7 were community oriented and not sponsored. And while in 2022, there's a whopping 75 total events. And you know how much of those were traditional and not sponsored? 3. It's 3 including RE battles, which Roblox doesn't even recognize as an official event, so only 2. Roblox has made its only goal of money and pleasing investors. And the RE battle situation just shows how much they don't value their player base anymore. If you don't know, Russo and Terabyte spent 2 years making RE battles and fully funded it out of pocket. An event would probably cost them around $100,000 if not more. And what did Roblox do for them? Basically nothing. They provided a Roblox prize but gave them no recognition and promotion. They didn't even do the small thing of adding them to the events tab. This just shows how much they don't care and don't value their players anymore, because the only events they ended up promoting were random companies that people don't care about. Roblox is putting money over anyone. They don't care about interacting with the community and going out of their way to make them happier anymore. So far this year we had 13 events. How many of those aren't sponsored? 0. Every single one has been a sponsor. It's not even just events. They don't interact with their community anymore. All their social medias are just boring corporate posts, with the exception of their TikTok, where they do actually have a little bit of fun. Now if you look at the numbers, Roblox is actually in its peak, hitting a record number of concurrent players with almost 10 million players active in one day. But you can only question, would this have been higher or already achieved if they did fun events and kept communicating? I like to think so. Also, one big game that helped them achieve high player counts is Bet X, a game heavily criticized in the community for being scummy and promoting gambling to a young audience. Not to mention the fact that they broke TOS several times. And what does Roblox do about this? Nothing. We've seen time and time again that if a game gets Roblox players and money, they can do whatever they want, which once again all comes back to greed. Roblox is willing to allow and do whatever in order to achieve the highest players and make the most amount of money. They went from the super player focused company to a company that would do anything for a cash grab, ruining their reputation and relationship with their players in the process.